Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Racked Up Insider Diamond Pass podcast here on this Wednesday, June 4th edition. I'm your host, Jack Foster, joined alongside Ryan Schumpert, as always, coming at you after Tennessee baseball has won the Knoxville Regional. We will be previewing the Super Regional today, the Fayetteville Super Regional, as Tennessee will be traveling west to play Arkansas and what is definitely the most anticipated super regional in college baseball. I think can safely say it's the best matchup. It's arguably the two best teams remaining in the field. I know Auburn's left. There's other teams who are ranked higher than Tennessee, but you could legitimately make an argument that these are the two best teams remaining. So it's going to be a heavyweight series that we're going to get into today previewing. But first, Ryan, how you doing?
Doing well. Yeah, no, I mean, you said maybe the two best teams, and my initial thought was like, there's no way. But I mean, there were so many upsets the first weekend, and yeah, you're probably not, Arkansas, I definitely think it is the best team left. And I think Tennessee is, you're right, probably, if not, there's definitely a case for them to be,
Definitely.
one of the better remaining teams left.
Yeah, Auburn, beat Tennessee, so I guess it would be difficult to say that Tennessee's better. But look, I think you look at if Tennessee's pitching staff could play really well and everybody could do well in a given weekend, it's better. And they have an offense that has turned the corner. North Carolina is still remaining, who is very hot right now, looks good. So
Florida State,
there's who
Florida State, I would say
Florida
is one of
State,
the other
yep,
ones up
didn't
there
lose in
too.
their regional.
Yep.
So there's good teams left. Or Oregon State's offense can compete with anybody. So there's still good teams left, but with the number one and number two going down in regionals, it's a little bit of a different looking tournament this year. Arkansas definitely the favorite, I think we could safely say. Ryan, we discussed before the regionals that, the chance at this, and while you were like, hey, it may not happen, like crazy things happen in the regionals all the time. Yeah, look what happened to 1 and 2. It does end up being 3-14 Arkansas, Tennessee. We just saw this series a couple of weeks ago, but how much do you think Tennessee baseball has changed as a team since that series loss in Fayetteville overall?
I honestly don't think a ton. And I think I say that from the standpoint, and we talked about it after, like, I felt like Tennessee played pretty well that weekend. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like their offense was good. Um, and I think you had started to see the signs of some of these pitching developments that have made Tennessee look better. AJ Russell was a big part of Tennessee winning that Thursday night game in Fayetteville, threw really well out of the bullpen. Brandon Arvidson had a pair of good outings that weekend. Now, not as long as of relief as we saw him do against Wake Forest this past weekend, and then against Texas in the SEC tournament, but he did throw really well. So, I think Tennessee's a pretty similar team to where they were. I think that even though Tennessee lost that series, I think that was one of the earlier signs of some Tennessee starting to play better and starting to show reasons to believe that they could make a run to the super regionals and make it out of a regional when they'd been struggling a lot. So I don't know that I feel Tennessee is a ton different. I think you go back and you point back to that series, because you hear me say that, you might think that, well, that's kind of negative. Tennessee's not any different. They lost that series. Well, I think you point back to Liam Doyle had arguably his worst outing of
Mm-hmm.
the season in that outing or in that series. And if Liam Doyle looks like the Liam Doyle we're used to seeing, or even a little bit worse version of that, just because Arkansas has a really good offense and they're going to make life difficult on them. Tennessee very well could have won that series. So it was a hotly contested series the first time around, and I expect it to be pretty similar this weekend.
It's such an outlier, right? 11 hits, 8 runs, 6 earned, and 4 2/3. That's nothing like Liam Doyle has done all year. I know he was, kind of bad against Texas, rocky outings against Bama and South Carolina, but that stat line is very staggering. Still ended up having 10 Ks, but the ineffectiveness of Doyle, really, the way he got hit around by Arkansas was very surprising at the time. And after a dominant pair of outings in the Knoxville Regional, it remains even more surprising. And you got to think that here's my take on it. Liam Doyle is such a baller. He is such a competitor. And we just saw what he did in a massive stage in the regional, slamming the door there in game 7 against Wake Forest. Liam Doyle definitely remembers how bad he was in Fayetteville. He gets to go back there. He gets to have redemption potentially. He gets to try again. That's a huge part of this series, in my opinion, and a major plus for Tennessee. It's almost good now in hindsight, like looking back on everything. If you were always going to go to Fayetteville, and even if Tennessee won that Arkansas series, I don't think they're a top 8 seed. So don't think Supers was in the equation at that point. But just now that everything has happened the way it has, I almost think you kind of like that Liam Doyle had a bad outing in Fayetteville, because you get that maniac going in a redemption spot to the same place he had his worst outing of the season. That's a dangerous thing for Tennessee to me.
Yeah, no, I can see that argument for sure. I don't think, to me, I guess it's just more like it's about my trust in Liam Doyle as being that maniac in any given moment, to where like if Liam Doyle had thrown really good against Arkansas the first time, I'm not sure I would feel like that's a worse thing compared to this. But yeah, I'm sure Liam Doyle in
Yeah,
Tennessee
right.
will use that to will push that to their benefit. And certainly I'm sure that's something that's motivating Doyle this week, though. In this type of stage, it's not like a guy like that needs a whole lot extra, but I'm sure
Exactly.
that is at least relatively fresh on his mind.
No, you're right. And yeah, if he had done well in Arkansas, all things are equal. But with the season he had, it's kind of hard to have a chip on your shoulder after so many elite outings and SEC Pitcher of the Year. I mean, he's always going to have one a little bit, but now it's even bigger, and to me, that's a dangerous thing to have a guy like Liam Doyle with something even more to prove, or even, uh, fire that's burning more going back to the place he struggled. So I think that's an important part of this series. Keeping it with the pitching conversation, we'll, as we always do, kind of talk pitching first half, offense second half, storylines, what have you. Let's address the order of Tennessee starters. Tony Vitello's midweek press conference to come, but we touched on this in our post-game recap of Tennessee's win over Wake Forest to clinch the Knoxville Regional. So go and check that out if you haven't already. But Marcus Phillips starting game one makes a whole lot of sense here. Cannon Peebles is suspended for one game because he was ejected in that game 7. So it'll be Stone Lawless, assuming, obviously, that he will be behind the plate in game 1. Marcus Phillips started numerous game 2s of series with Stone behind the plate. Gives Liam Doyle extra rest to have Phillips throw on Saturday. It just makes a lot of sense for Marcus to start Saturday night, Liam Sunday. Would that be your projection? And just talk about, that being the no-brainer decision, it feels like.
Yeah, I think that is definitely what I would do. That'd be my projection. A little bit, more ambiguity, I guess, with Tennessee playing the Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I think if it was the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's an absolute no-brainer. Like, it's not even a conversation. So with that, I mean, I think, you could see the argument to just running it back the same, keeping your same routines and stuff like that. But I still think I would mix it up, just from, again, getting Liam a little bit more rest. I think would be a good thing. And then to me, it's more about the catcher, almost. And I think, look, Stone Lawless has kind of been out of the fold for a while, to the standpoint of, like, I think people forget how much he did play earlier in the season and how
Oh,
much he
yeah.
did catch Marcus Phillips. I mean, I'm just trying to run the numbers now. It was 5 SEC starts, that Stone Lawless was the catcher for Marcus Phillips,
Yep.
and 4 non-conference ones, I guess. That's right. There's 4 non-conference series weekends, so that's
Mm-hmm.
9. And so, I'm trying to run the quick numbers here. I guess it's 9 times that Marcus Phillips has been caught by Stone Lawless, and 7 times he's been caught by Cannon People. So even though it feels like Cannon's been the guy there, and he obviously has been, he's won that job, as it feels like that's been a while. Still, more times this season, Marcus Phillips has thrown to Stone Lawless as opposed to Cannon Peebles. So I think there's just a ton of familiarity there. He's thrown well to him. And then on the reverse side, Liam Doyle has exclusively thrown to Cannon Peebles all year.
Yep.
And not that Stone Lawless couldn't be good catching him, or that would be some sort of problem for Liam, but I would just want to keep that continuity and that familiarity of two guys who clearly know each other well, work off each other's energy well, and understand, or at least from Cannon's area really understands Liam's strengths and what makes him such a good pitcher.
Yeah, and it would. This doesn't matter, but it would be the same order as the last time you played Arkansas, and Marcus
Yep.
Phillips won at Game 1 against Arkansas. So that's Phillips didn't throw just amazing in Fayetteville, but he was very solid. Run game didn't hurt him. Not that, and Arkansas is not a team that runs, but we've seen Phillips drastically improve in that area. It's a good matchup for Phillips, all things considered. It's not a team that relies on small ball, which would probably be Phillips's downfall potentially, but. Marcus did very well. 7 hits, 3 runs, and 4 2/3, I believe, was his line against Arkansas. Really effective against a great team. So, yeah, just makes a lot of sense. Let's move to bullpen power rankings. This is something we've done quite a bit here. Over the weekend, we saw some really good performances from Tennessee's bullpen. You look at what Brandon Arvidsson was able to do after kind of a rocky start, 108 pitch relief outing, another 5 1/3 from him. I think he's firmly up there as far as the most trusted Tennessee bullpen arms. AJ Russell, a weirder weekend, throwing twice, but a solid relief outing in that Saturday game against Cincinnati. A little bit uncompetitive when he was pitching, so not super high leverage moments. And then has the start, of course, the opener start in Monday's game on short rest, and gave up a 2-run homer, but had a solid first inning. Didn't look terrible or anything, but it was just such a short outing, hard to truly assess. And of course, the short rest goes into that too. But those two guys, I think, are our top guys when we are ranking these bullpen arms. Nate Sneed, Braden Krenzel, Dylan Loy. How would you kind of slot everybody in? I think Russell and Arvidsson would be your top 2, but after that.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think it's a different, those two, and then a different tier to what's after them. Yeah, I mean, I think I would probably go Sneed 3. Maybe it's an overreaction. Krenzel 4. Franklin 5, Loy 6. Some version of Loy and Franklin, but really all 4 of those guys to me feel pretty similar. Yeah, just could get it done in any given outing. It wouldn't be surprising if the outing went poorly.
Yeah, I struggle with Nate Sneed's weekend because he only pitched once, and it was in the loss. And, he comes in, and that 8th inning, he retires the side around a wacky 2-out triple that Dalton Bargo loses in the air, but gets a electric strikeout to strand the runner at third. And then in the 9th, there's the bunt, there's a walk, there's a single, and then the 4-pitch walk to end it. Everything happened. It ended so fast. Like that game, it just ended so fast there in the bottom of the 9th to me, the way Wake Forest was able to score. I still have a lot of trust in Sneed. Maybe I'm crazy. It feels like a lot of Vol fans don't at all. You look on Twitter, Nate Sneed has gotten plenty of flack this year, but I don't know. I still trust him in big moments. I would put him in his own tier is what I'm trying to say.
In the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I mean, that's why I still went with him 3, even though he probably hasn't been the 3rd best. But, I do. There's a little bit of, equity standpoint. What's the phrase? I think Tony always uses. He's got a little bit of equity in the company when he talks about he'll listen to players and their input on what they think on things. I think Nate Sneed's one of those guys. So, yeah, I don't know if I would throw him in his tier of his own in the middle, but I guess I would just say I agree with that. I definitely think that's a very fair argument. And then we talked about some, like, I don't know. I like Nate Sneed, and when I wrote the article, like, this was the premise. I like Nate Sneed for an inning. If you got a 1-run game, 9th inning, close the door, I feel good about Nate Sneed. I feel good about him getting the job done. It's when they start to stretch him out in more long relief, asking him to get 6 to 9 to 12 outs. It's like that range where I just don't feel. I just feel like it's going to go sideways. And, we talked about it over, our post-game video after the win over Wake Forest on Monday night about how that game, some things didn't necessarily always go great for the pitching staff, but they never let anything snowball. And I think that was largely pretty accurate of the weekend as a whole. I feel like it snowballs for Sneed when it goes badly. And maybe some of that's on Tony for not getting him out of the game earlier and making him work through it when he doesn't have it. So that's almost to the point of, like, and I think you kind of saw that in that 9th inning where obviously the game was over, but there was still bases loaded with nobody out. Like if that was the 8th inning, that was going to be a big inning. After he had been really good for an inning and a third. So I think it almost just feels like we hit a point with Nate Sneed where he, I don't know if falls off the cliff's the right word, but at least it's just much less effective. But in shorter outings, an inning, maybe a little bit over an inning, I still feel good about him.
I agree with that. That's a good point. It does feel like it snowballs on him more than others. And you mentioned Braden Krenzel, who was your 4th guy. You said maybe it's a little recency bias. Well, yes, in a way, because he hadn't been good before that, and we had lost a lot of trust in him, talking on here and other places prior to the regional. But what he did against Wake Forest, we'd seen multiple times. We'd seen Braden Krenzel have multiple innings of great relief early in SEC play before he got that sickness. And if he's back like that, if he can do that again, and this is also a guy that Tony trusts in jam spots. We didn't see a jam spot when he relieved Russell. No one was on base. It was mid-inning, but this is a guy that has come in countless bases loaded situations. Feels like at least 2 to 4 this year, which is a lot. And I don't know. I think he's a guy who can handle pressure. And for a freshman, that's obviously very impressive, but he's a guy Tony trusts, you can tell. And if he can do that against Wake Forest when the game with Tennessee was trailing, you talked about it, put it beautifully in our post-game recap, that arguably, or the most recognized, underrated part of Tennessee's win against Wake Forest was Braden Krenzel having a 1-2-3 inning in the top of the 4th after Tennessee only got 1 run out of a bases loaded 1-out opportunity and still trailed 2-1. Krenzel comes back out there in the 4th, 1-2-3. So I think Krenzel's outing proved a lot against Wake Forest. The 4th in your list makes a lot of sense, especially when it comes to going deeper into outings. I don't trust Loy to go extended relief, really. He has very few times where he's done that well this year. I know the Auburn outing was great, but I largely think he'll just be a lefty specialist moving forward. Or maybe he should be. Like you saw that the inning he came in for, Krenzel gets a strikeout. That was really good. Loy's outing probably should have ended there. Go to someone else in the next inning. And you mentioned Sneed is more of just a true 9th inning closer. Franklin, I can see having a wide range of outcomes with him. If he's on, then I think he could be 3rd on this list. But Krenzel, I think, is along those lines of an extended relief guy that can get you 6 to 9, maybe even more outs.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like his role is more of what they would ask him to do is more expanded than certainly I think Franklin and Loy. You're right. Franklin has this, there's scenarios where he could go longer. And I think and this is kind of, again, what's always important with these bullpen things of what you're specifically trusting. If I'm asked for 9 outs, I think I trust Braden Krenzel more than Nate Sneed. If I'm asked for 3 outs, I definitely trust Nate Sneed more than I trust Braden Krenzel.
Right.
It's kind of one of those type of deals. So, no, I completely agree. I think it's also worth noting that before Monday, probably his best outing in the season, or his best outing post his illness when he missed 2 weeks, was at Arkansas. He had walk issues in that Sunday game. I think he walked 4 guys in maybe 3 innings or somewhere in that range. I don't have it pulled up right now, but he largely kept Arkansas. I believe it was a scoreless outing, and was effective. Got the job done. Would check that box. It wasn't super pretty to the eyes because of the walks. Yeah, 2 2/3. He walked 4 guys and gave up 1 run. So
the
it didn't look pretty to the eyes.
Yeah,
but it was a productive outing.
5Ks.
Whenever Braden Krenzel pitches this weekend, if he allows 1 run and gets 8 outs, I think Tennessee would take that.
Yeah, 5Ks too is good with 8 outs. So, and he's not really a high strikeout guy either. So, yeah, no, you're right. I just think there's various roles for these guys. Tanner Franklin's fastball against Wake was awesome. He was pretty dialed that game, and this is a guy with supreme talent. When it comes to talent level of these guys, he's up there with the Arvidssons and the Russells. I actually think that would be the top 3 as far as just talent goes. Sneed has the velocity, but I think Franklin's a little more dynamic. Anyway, I I think Franklin could be in store for a big outing. Like, it wouldn't shock me if Franklin has a huge moment at some point this weekend or moving forward in the postseason that we're all. It wouldn't, like I just said, it wouldn't shock me, but I think it would be surprising on the surface a little bit
Yeah.
because of his season. But you see it in there. You see it in there to where he can really dominate. Um, I just, it's kind of a wide range of outcomes. I also wouldn't be surprised if he goes out there and gives up 3 straight hits. We've seen that before. So it's a little more of a risky call to go to Franklin at certain spots. I like Franklin coming in clean innings, but I think he certainly has a role here.
Yeah, no, I agree for sure. That one fastball he threw, I know Pitching Ninja picked up on it, which also shout out Jack, got a Pitching Ninja retweet over the weekend, or I guess it's Monday, so it wasn't over the weekend. That one fastball he threw looked like a glitch. It looked like you were playing a video game and it glitched and how it moved from one side of the plate to the other. At the velo it did was crazy. So, but no, I agree with all that on Franklin. I think the big question for the pitching staff, or the big unknown, Mr. Tegan Kuhns.
Yep, that was the next point to wrap up pitching conversation here. Tegan Kuhns did not pitch in the Knoxville Regional. Thought he would start Sunday, didn't pitch. Okay, thought he would start Monday, didn't pitch again. Was in the bullpen though, tossing around occasionally during that Monday game. So I don't think it's like an injury thing or anything like that because he was tossing. But it's kind of strange. Tegan Kuhns hasn't thrown yet. Maybe Tony will be asked in the midweek presser here. Either I think it's tomorrow, right? On Thursday?
Yes, it's supposed to be Thursday.
We're kind of in like I said, I don't think either of us really know what's going on with Tegan Kuhns or what his role could be this weekend. But I guess I'll just ask you: do you think that Tennessee is more apt to go with an opener type guy in a game 3 over Tegan Kuhns' start? What's your hunch here? Because he hasn't been a bullpen guy, but a couple of times this year he's been a starter. Has 10 starts to his season. To not pitch in 4 games was very shocking.
Yeah, it was. I think it all just depends on how the weekend unfolds before Monday. Like, here's a take. I think if Tennessee wins, I think they win in 2 games. I don't like them in a game 3 situation.
I think everyone would agree with that, yeah.
So my thought process here is, if I'm Tennessee, I'm emptying the clip pitching-wise the first 2 games. I'm throwing Russell, I'm throwing Arvidsson, I'm throwing Sneed, I'm throwing everybody that I trust. And now, so if it's one of those deals where, like Mark still says, an outing similar to his outing at Arkansas, that was pretty solid, but he didn't get super deep into the game. Like, you're going to a bunch of different dudes. You find a way to win that game. Let's say he's theoretically throwing game 1 on Saturday, and then you go to Doyle in game 2. It's like, there's no thought of saving anything to me.
Yeah.
You're playing it like, to me, which I don't know if they would quite do this, but like, I'm playing that game like I am handling. I almost think I would say this about every single game. I am handling each game like it is a game 7 of a regional, in which you are willing to use every single one of your pitchers in any different role for any short amount of time, short leash on guys. Maybe a little bit longer leash when guys get rolling, but generally, unless they're pitching really well, you're giving them a short leash. So I think because of that, if both those first 2 games are close, and let's say Tennessee wins one and loses one, Tegan Kuhns is probably just your best option. I think you start him. Now, let's say one of those games probably be a big game you lose. Let's say one of those games you lose 8-2, and it's not overly competitive, and you don't go all out on your pitching in that game because of that aspect. Then I think, yeah, maybe you don't start Tegan Kuhns. I mean, to me, it's clear that there's not a ton of trust in him right now. I think in maybe that scenario, you'd go to an opener, or you would start somebody else. But so that's kind of what I mean when I just say, to me, it's all about how the first 2 games flow as to what Kuhns' role could look like in a potential game 3.
Right. But, we saw that kind of happen, and not quite, because Franklin and Krenzel hadn't thrown, Lloyd only thrown a handful, but Kuhns was the most logical choice to at least open on that Monday game. But then Russell just starts on 2 days rest with 53 pitches haven't been thrown, and Tennessee won't have the luxury being able to do that because it's shorter time frame. If Russell throws 45 on Saturday, I don't think he could start Monday. And I don't
I
really
mean, that'd
know.
be the exact same thing, would it not?
It'd be one less day.
One more day, yeah, because he's
Yeah.
on Friday. Yes, you're right.
And Arvidsson feels like his floor for pitches is 60 if he's solid. I mean, dude's throwing over 100. So I don't know. Like, did Tennessee? I think the Loy opener thing maybe went to plan. Like Tony kind of said it did in a way. They wanted to get maybe a couple more, but yeah, I don't know if they do that again. It was just odd. It felt like they were just trying everything else but Coons. When Coons made a lot of sense
Yeah.
to come out of the bullpen first or to start that game. Like the Russell opener didn't really make a lot of sense to me. I liked the upside play of it, but I don't know. It felt like they were trying everything else but Coons. So we'll see what happens.
And you're not wrong. The only thing I would add when you're just talking about like the game 3 situation is Tennessee got 7 outs from Liam Doyle. I'm not gonna get 7 outs from Liam Doyle in a game 3.
Yeah.
So I think that taking him out of the equation like that, and this is very dependent. Like if Phillips pitches 6 innings and Doyle pitches 7 innings, this isn't true. But if a couple of those outings are just shorter, I don't know. Like I just think you're gonna have to use Tegan Coons at some point. I said that twice last weekend in post game videos, so maybe I'm wrong about that. But that is the one thing that I would say is different is Liam Doyle collected, a good chunk of outs out of the bullpen in game 3 or in game 7. That won't be the situation in a game 3 this weekend. Which I will say, I'm sure we certainly weren't alone, but we talked on this podcast last week about how we thought they should go Phillips game 1, Doyle game 2. Absolutely, they made the right call. It worked out for both of them on the front end, and then Doyle was able, since he threw on game 1, to come back and throw again.
Yeah, Doyle being able to throw again changed that whole thing. It made it the right call. I don't think it would have mattered if Tennessee swept the regional, but it ended up being the right call because Liam was able to go again. And just before we move on to the offense, Liam Doyle, we talked about this on our post-game recap, but what a performance. And that's the stuff of legend, what he was able to do coming out of the bullpen on short rest, putting team first before himself. Last thing you want to do is get injured before the MLB draft just here in less than a couple of months, or just a couple of months away, I should say. So Liam Doyle doing that's an all-time Vol moment, electric stuff. So hats off to Liam Doyle for, really having a moment that Tennessee baseball fans will remember for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was legendary. I mean, I just think his overall numbers of the weekend, like, put it most clearly. Pitched 9 innings, gave up 4 hits, 1 run, 16 strikeouts. Like, that's unreal. Those are insane numbers.
Absolutely. All right, let's move forward talking about the offense. Tennessee's offense played pretty well as a whole in the Knoxville Regional. Scores 9 runs against Miami of Ohio, 10 against Cincy, only 6 in the first game against Wake, and then 11 in the second. I think that's right. So as a whole, I think it was a productive weekend for Tennessee. Couple of poor performances from guys that have had good seasons, specifically Dalton Bargo, who went 1 of 16 at the plate during the regional. I will say, though, had a couple of barrels that, he just got unlucky there in the first couple of games. He was making good contact, but as a whole, didn't get the results he was looking for. Reese Chapman, Levi Clark were okay on the stat sheet, but Clark had a big homer, I should say, in the loss they had, but at the time was huge. Outside of that, Gavin Keelan, Andrew Fisher, Dean Curley, they all raked. Manny Marin, what a game 7 against Wake with 3 hits and a walk, had a massive 3-run homer. Cannon Peoples, productive weekend. So it really feels like this offense is continuing to build momentum here and is in a really good spot heading into the Super.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it so many times this season of just wanting to see Tennessee can get its best hitters going at the same time. There's so much talent there that group will be able to make Tennessee's offense good. And it's not like it's been perfect. I mean, Bargo's been one of the better hitters all year. Inslee didn't have a great weekend. But before the season, I would have projected Andrew Fisher, Dean Curley, and Gavin Keelan to be Tennessee's 3 best hitters. Those are the 3 most talented offensive players. The 3 guys in Tennessee's lineup that had the best chance to play Major League Baseball one day. And all three of those guys were fantastic at the plate. I mean, just phenomenal. You saw Gavin Keelan get back to the incredibly high-level contact hitting that he had early in the season. Reached base over 50% of his at-bats.
Dude hits.
Andrew Fisher was clutch. You saw the power. He continued to walk a ton, 4 walks. And then Dean Curley was just phenomenal, really. I mean, he had the 1 home run, and not any other extra base hits, and not a ton of power. But, again, hit over 364, had 6 walks, just 2 strikeouts, clutch hitting, second most RBIs at a weekend with 7. So he was phenomenal. So those guys, I think, just by nature of being that good, led it to it being a good weekend. Tennessee got some production from the back of the lineup. Manny was phenomenal on Game 7. Cannon Peebles had some moments. Levi Clark, you mentioned he had the big home run. He got on base a lot. I think 2 walks, 2 hit by pitches. Again, I've probably said this on this podcast before. It's my one baseball rule I would change. It's a stat rule. Levi Clark got hit by a 3-2 pitch. If you get hit by a pitch with 3 balls, it should count as a walk on your stat sheet because people respect walks more than they do hit by pitches, and you earned a walk. So only 2 walks for Levi Clark, but a hit by pitch that was ball 4 as well. So he did some good things. I think, the middle of the order is what left stuff to be desired this weekend with Inslee in the 3-hole, Bargo in the 4-hole, and Chapman in the 6-hole.
Yep. I will say Inslee worked 5 walks, so he had a 400 on base percentage, so he got on quite a few times. And
he was definitely better than those 2 other guys. I will say.
Yeah. Chapman did have 2 sac flies to bring his RBI total to 5 on the weekend, so it wasn't just a complete black hole. Bargo was definitely the worst. But yeah, Peebles 4 doubles. That's pretty impressive. And
I'm pretty sure. Let me see if I can find this. That he had. Trying to double check. Where is he on the stat sheet? He had 4 doubles on the season before this weekend. So he doubled up his double total this past weekend.
That is wild.
Yeah.
What a low double total for the regular season. Yeah. That's
no triples either. All his extra base hits were home runs.
Yeah, Mr. Cal. He was it's crazy how he was kind of similar to Cal Stark. Didn't probably strike out as much. It felt like his at-bats were better overall, but just kind of homered when he hit, didn't get on base much other times outside of
he had a much higher single rate than Cal.
It wasn't there was not only 3 options when he came to the plate. There were more than 3. It wasn't just
more than
3
with Cal.
Or it was hit by pitch, strikeout, or homer. That was Cal's 3 options.
Or you could throw pop out and doesn't get out of the infield either. I'm trying to find. It was literally my favorite stat of last season. And look, I say this lovingly. I was an all-time Cal Stark defender.
Yes.
Some would say the biggest Cal Stark defender. Thank you. He had. It's not gonna have it here. He had like 11 singles or 11 home runs last season, and trying to do some quick math. Yeah, 11 home runs and 11 singles last season. Awesome stat.
That is sweet.
The funniest stat.
How many hit by pitches? I know he had a ton in 23.
Yeah, I think he had more in 23. 11 hit by pitches, 19 walks.
Wait, so 11, 11, 11 hit by pitch.
He had an 11, 11, 11
home run.
People don't want to talk about it. Why aren't more people talking about 11, 11, 11 seasons?
Hey, Cal Stark, good luck charm too. In the house for Game 7, him and Dylan Dreiling, teammates over at Spartanburg. Come up to Knoxville, catch the game. Tennessee wins.
That's absolutely right. Those are two winners. And helped the ball help improve the vibes in the ballpark as the Vols got a big win.
Yeah. All right, looking ahead to the Super Regional, Ryan. Well, what's the % chance Tennessee wins? What would you put it at?
37.
It's a little more than one out of 3. Okay.
Yeah. I'm between 35 and 40. It was 35 and 40 were the 2 numbers that came to find.
I think that's fair. Arkansas, they look good in their regional, man.
They
steamrolled.
Now the 2 seed Kansas, who
didn't have to face
egg on my face. I was hyping them up on here last week. They were terrible.
Yeah,
they were completely laid an egg. So that made it a little bit easier. But now, Arkansas has the offense that they haven't had in recent years. Is my thing. Like their offense, I think would probably say is at least the best in the SEC. Maybe not the best in the country. I don't watch enough of those other teams to really weigh in on that. But to me, they have the best offense in the SEC.
Maybe SEC, but country, come on. Racers of Murray State have the best offense in the country. Talk about a team that hits. Holy cow. Murray State loves to hit the ball.
Not every SEC program can beat a Missouri Valley Conference school with a postseason weekend on the line and all the pressure on them. It's hard. It's hard. Not everybody can do what Tennessee did to Evansville Game 3 last year, the Missouri Valley champs, in a decisive final game when the smaller schools are running out of pitching. It's difficult.
Not enough people are talking about it because I feel like all the attention is on Texas and even
Vanderbilt.
LSU. Even LSU, like Little Rock playing them close. LSU still won. But yeah, Vandy, Texas, LSU, these teams are getting all the flack. Like, Ole Miss lost to Murray State twice.
I think it's the fact that they lost the first game is why. Because I think since they lost game 1, people kind of counted them out.
Yeah.
And so it didn't feel maybe as bad. But, like, I mean, going into the game on Monday, I was completely convinced Ole Miss was going to win. Once they had forced it to Game 7 against Murray State, I was like, oh, yeah, they'll win. But Xander Seacrest wasn't walking through that door for Ole Miss. They did not have a dude that could go out there, eat at Texas Roadhouse the night before a big start, and shut the door.
Oh my gosh, dude! Murray State, I know they threw their ace for like 4 more innings in that last game, and I think they threw their Game 2 starter again too. It was ridiculous.
Who is it that they play? Murray State plays this weekend now.
Duke. Georgia lost, so they only have to go to Duke. Murray State had 19 hits in that game.
That's crazy.
Unbelievable. Ole Miss had 8 runs in the 7th and 8th combined, and they still lost.
Yeah, I mean, that's like appreciation for Frank Anderson. I noticed Tennessee pitching staff hasn't been great this year by their standards, but that's the type of stuff that like is maddening. And it never happens to, or at least has not happened to a Frank Anderson staff at Tennessee at any point.
No. I mean, I know they got a juggernaut of an offense, obviously, but yeah, this is just wild. This is what we said about Ole Miss though earlier in the year. Don't have good pitching. Look what happened.
Yep. Like, hey, I got to use this Liam Doyle guy. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Yeah, I'm rooting so hard for Murray State. How awesome would it be if they go to Omaha?
That would be electric. If Murray State makes it to Omaha and Tennessee makes it to Omaha, I will be excited to see what Murray State themed College World Series shirt you get.
Yeah, I'm definitely buying one. I'm getting the merch. I have to get my parents something. Both of my parents are alums, so we'll definitely be dropping a pretty penny on some Racer merch. But Tennessee's got to get there first, obviously, too.
Yeah.
I almost wouldn't be surprised if Murray State makes it and Tennessee doesn't, because they got it going right now. And Arkansas is the best team remaining in the field. Anyway, moving forward, we're just talking about Arkansas. The Loy brothers, Davalon, Maxwell, Koziel, man, they got dudes everywhere. Yeah, Helfrich has been mashing this year too. 13 homers. They got many guys with double digit. Wahiwa Loy, SEC Player of the Year, had 20 on the season, 64 RBIs. This is a juggernaut of a team, but I think the pitching staff a little bit gettable. This team can hit and they're going to put up runs. But you talk about a pitching staff that kind of changed its rotation right before that Tennessee series. In their regional, they started that Aiden Jimenez guy who had gotten his first start of the season, I believe, against Tennessee. So that was when they first kind of changed things up. But he pitched game 1 against the 4-seed North Dakota State. You had Zach Root, who's been their Friday guy all year, start game 2. And then Gage Wood start game 3. Gakeley and the guy with the complicated name who started a lot of games this year, Beidelshees. Both of those guys pitched a lot. They're going to be out of the bullpen, presumably eating some big outs or trying to get some big outs for Arkansas this weekend. But yeah, my point is this Tennessee offense is hot, and we saw the damage it was able to do in Arkansas last time. I think that's easily repeatable. And then if Liam Doyle is Liam Doyle, Tennessee won that game with Marcus, man. I think Tennessee can win this game in 2, or the series in 2.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I think it's like what you said, I think it has to be Tennessee's offense. Like the Arkansas pitching staff is gettable, and Tennessee's offense at this bigger ballpark, we've seen them not just be relying on home runs to be more balanced, score in multiple ways. So I feel like they can do that. But Arkansas's offense is so good, they're going to score. Like they're going to get runs, and so you cannot rely on simply out pitching them. You'd love for Liam Doyle to go out there and just be fantastic, and limit that lineup 2 to 3 times through, really 3 times through. I think I would put my number one key like right now is get Inslee, Bargo, and Chapman going a little bit more. Not that they all have to be amazing, but you need those guys to be productive. Better, especially Bargo and Chapman, better than they were this past weekend.
Yeah. You said for Tennessee to win, they're more likely to win in 2 games, so it doesn't have to go to a game 3. If it goes to a rubber match, we'll readdress this if it does happen and it does go to Monday. But you look at that Monday game, I mean, do you think that Tennessee has more than a 15% chance to win that game? Like, I don't.
I would go more than 15, just from the nature of the sport, nature of baseball, win or go home game like that. I wouldn't feel confident in them winning, but it wouldn't shock me either. Just certainly, I think Arkansas would be set up in a better place. But look, Arkansas, I think, has all the pressure on them this weekend, and I could see that stadium in a game 3 type situation. Tennessee takes a lead, getting a little tense. Yep.
Yes. Get in the tight, as Michael Irvin would say.
Yep.
You get in the tight. Talking about playoff football. Yeah, I'll say it. I think Tennessee wins the series.
All right.
I've been the optimist this whole time. My favorite bit in the press box last weekend was when I didn't know if I was going to go to Fayetteville or not, telling people I'll see him in Omaha. It was so funny. But now, I think Tennessee can win. I just think the postseason Tennessee baseball is a different animal. We see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to try. It's hard not to trust this program in the postseason. I mean, we've seen it this week. Tennessee's made 5 straight supers. No other program has made even 4 supers in that time frame. I don't think even a single program has made 3 straight supers. Maybe it's 1 or 2.
I know Mike Wilson did some. He's the one who tweeted out that no other has made 5 straight. No others made 4 straight either.
No others made 4 straight either.
Like it, not a 21.
No one's made
24.
No one's made 4 out of 5.
Gotcha. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, Bill Martin, I know, retweeted some stuff on it too. Both those guys had done some good stuff with it. But yeah, I mean, just from that, don't get me wrong, I get it. I get the confidence. If you're Tennessee, Tennessee's camp, you're trying to get reseeding. How can Tennessee get somebody other than Arkansas? Yeah, there's not like too many series that I wouldn't feel good about Tennessee. I think to me it's more about Arkansas than it is about Tennessee when I say that.
Yeah, and Tony's 2-11 against Van Horn.
Yeah,
that's a tough record.
Yeah, and look, like some of it I think is incredibly unlucky. Like let's just think about 19 team had to go play out there, got swept. 19 team was better for Tennessee than the 18 team. Certainly not what they've become. Arkansas, if I'm not mistaken, I guess it was 18 that they lost in the championship game. But they had a really good team in 19 as well. 21 was the one that was a doable. Tennessee had a really good team, made Omaha, played at home. But Arkansas was also the best team in the country that year. So, I mean, that was a winnable series. Don't get me wrong. But nothing crazy. 22, Tennessee's the best team. One of Tennessee's best teams didn't play them. 23, Tennessee is obviously turned out to be a good team, made it Omaha, but played in Fayetteville when they were really struggling early in the year. And then 24 team that was really good, didn't play them. So some of that's just kind of the years, the times they've gotten them, I think has been unfortunate. But at the end of the day, the proof's in the pudding. And no other program has come close to having Tennessee's number under Tony Vitello like Arkansas has.
Yeah. No, it's shaping up to be an awesome series. I know the environment will be incredible. Both of us will be headed to Fayetteville, so looking forward to that. Full coverage, RockTopInsider.com all weekend long. First game, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Second game, 2 p.m. Eastern. Of course, TBD time for that Monday game if necessary. I think, is it ESPN, both the first 2 games?
Yep.
So I know it's Tom Hart, KP, and Burke calling the game, so got the A crew. And yeah, it's going to be a hell of a series there in Fayetteville. I know Bomb's going to be insane. Ryan, anything else before we wrap up?
No, one note just on that. I was talking to John Wilkerson on Monday night, and I know John Wilkerson is doing his work to tell the Arkansas people this, to tell the ESPN people this. They often say on the broadcast of Tennessee to Arkansas that Tennessee has never won a series at Baum-Walker Stadium. John Wilkerson wants the people to know that that is not true. Tennessee won a series at Baum-Walker Stadium in 2001, but the Arkansas record books have gotten mixed up and have that series having taken place in Knoxville. So in the Arkansas 2001 baseball season record books, it has them playing 6 road SEC series and 4 home SEC series, with the Tennessee series being the one that was actually at Baum-Walker Stadium in Fayetteville. They have happening at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. So if you hear that stat, if someone tries to tell you that stat, it's not true. Tennessee has a very bad record at Baum-Walker Stadium. They have not been good there, but they do have a series win. And if it gets talked about on the broadcast this weekend, Chris Burke knows it better than anybody. Chris Burke was on the team that won in Fayetteville in 2001. But if it gets talked about, think of John Wilkerson. And I don't know if he deserves all the credit because, again, Chris Burke's there. He was on the team that won, so he can vouch for the story. But John Wilkerson has been doing his part to get that little piece of misinformation struck from the record.
Well, and you know that it's not like John stumbled upon the mistake in the Arkansas record book. He was probably
there.
Hell no, I remember. I called the thing. So, and then he goes and double checks himself. It wasn't he stumbles upon this and notices the mistake. No, it was natural memory of that, and then double check, and then making sure.
And I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was telling me details about the series too, of how it went down, and a pitcher who pitched well in it and stuff like that.
He's an encyclopedia, man. It's awesome.
He is.
It's so great. If you want to ever read more about John Wilkerson too, last year, College World Series time frame, Ryan wrote a tremendous feature on John Wilkerson. I'm sure we should promote it again at some point this postseason. So it was amazing, and you guys should go check it out if you ever are, have some spare time and want to read more about Tennessee baseball's play-by-play guy. All right, that'll do it for this edition of the Rocky Top Insider Diamond Pass. Ryan Schumpert, you can follow him at rshump00. Follow me at Jack Foster Media, of course, at Rocky Top Insider on all social platforms, and stay up to date with all coverage this weekend. RockyTopInsider.com from Hog Country. For Ryan, I'm Jack. We'll see you next time.